I tell you, I love a party. I love a celebration, and it's been a long, long stretch since the House of Medicine had anything to celebrate in the federal area. So today I'm going to introduce somebody to you, a physician, not only a physician, a Texas physician, not only a Texas physician congressman who is the cause of a tremendous celebration in the House of Medicine now. But let me give you a little bit of history about this celebration. And of course, it all starts with SGR. We know about SGR, how we have had to spend our precious political capital every year or every 6 months sometimes to try to prevent its implementation, and how the cost has gone up and up to the hundreds of billions of dollars. And I'll tell you, on a personal basis, I've been fighting this for 11 or 12 years, and I've just about given up hope that I'd ever see it go away, at least in my lifetime. Let me give you a little bit of history about Mike Burgess. They called me, I've forgotten what, 14 years ago maybe, when he ran the first time, and said he needed a little bit of support, a little bit of money. I sent him some, but I tell you, he was running against the son of a very powerful congressman, and I thought to myself, you know, he doesn't have a snowball's chance. But I gave him a little bit of money anyway, but I didn't know the tenacity of Dr. Burgess, because he became Congressman Burgess at that point. And I talked with him a few years later, and SGR is beginning to rear its ugly head, and he told me about his plans to cut that head off, and he even showed me the formula for SGR, and I tell you, it's a algebra student's nightmare. And I smiled and nodded and thought to myself, sure. I didn't know the tenacity of now Congressman Burgess, because in his 7th term, he finally killed the beast. And I tell you, I am honored and I'm proud to introduce to you today a person who has led not only the House of Medicine, but our patients to a tremendous victory. So I want you to join with me in showing your appreciation to Dr. Congressman Michael Burgess.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here. Lou, always good to see you. Dr. Drake, congratulations, I think, on your election. Dr. Moy, congratulations on a successful term as Speaker. Dr. Reed, I don't know where you are out there, but congratulations, I think, on what you're about to undertake. Art, it's always good to be with you. Let me just tell you something. The fall of 2012, I looked at what was labeled as the cost of repealing the sustainable growth rate formula, not a real cost, and we can get into that a little bit, but it had risen to $385 billion over 10 years. I didn't see any way out. The only thing I could hold on to was there was an election. Paul Ryan was the vice presidential nominee. He talked about this thing called premium support. Put a pencil to paper, and I thought, you know, in a fully mature premium support system, sometime before I die, the SGR will no longer be important, and that's really got to be the way to go. But then you may know that the election in 2012 did not turn out the way I thought it was going to. So after getting over disappointment on a lot of different levels and looking around, what in the world is going to happen to the SGR? There is no way forward. Every now and then, the Congressional Budget Office will adjust the baseline. And Dr. King, thank you for bringing up the issue of the formula. I'm probably the only member of Congress who's taken the SGR formula to the floor of the House and run through its different factors. The thing about the SGR formula, there's a little thing called the update adjustment factor. And I can remember my physiology professor back in medical school saying, gentlemen, it's ammonia that gives urine its bad name. True enough. It's the update adjustment factor that gives the SGR its bad name. This is the only audience with which I can use that joke. So, Dr. King, thank you for giving me the appropriate lead-in. But there was seemingly no way out. The Congressional Budget Office recalculated the baseline and said, you know what, it's going to cost $113 billion to repeal the sustainable growth rate formula. Whoa, that's a huge sale. Let's buy while it's low. And we redoubled our efforts. Committee chairman on the Energy and Commerce Committee that where I serve, we actually had an identified committee staff that Dr. Shea from New York, and all he did was work on the SGR to try to get the policy right. We redoubled our efforts because of that catching the wind of that lowered CBO score was what propelled this along. For the entirety of 2013, we worked on this, tried to get the policy right. We fought with Ways and Means. You may remember at one time, I said there has to be at least a 1% update for 10 years or the doctors are never going to go for it. I walked out of the room. I slammed my books together. I said, I'm done here. I'm not going for 0.5 for 5. But it's what we got. You know what? At the end of the day, it was worth taking it. We also preserved the ability for a fee-for-service practice to exist in the future. There were plenty of people in that room who said, look, fee-for-service is dead. We're just going to go to other methods of payment. I held out for fee-for-service and was able to keep that in. The alternative payment methods are going to be important, but the important thing for us to remember here is the default position now is not the Secretary of Health and Human Services, it is medicine. Medicine can make those decisions. You all must step up and do that work. But that's the road ahead. Now look, there were still plenty of bleak days, and I really thought at one point, if you even would have me in to address you, I thought my talk was going to go something like this. We've gotten farther than we've ever been before. We've really moved the needle this time. Maybe one more run at this. I was so tired of giving that speech, and I'm so grateful that I didn't have to give it again. Credit to the Speaker of the House and Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. We provided them a policy that was agreed to by the principal committees of jurisdiction, House and Senate, in February of 2014. So anybody who said, oh, this just came to us last night, we haven't had time to look at it. No, sir, you've had it for 14 months. You should have looked at it because anybody could have told you we had to fix this problem. On the House of Representatives, we worked hard. We worked with many of your representatives. This is a hard concept. It's hard to understand. You have an outside think tank saying this is going to add money to the deficit. But you know what? The sad fact of the matter is the cost of doing nothing was about $1 billion more than the cost of fixing it. Given that balance, I'll vote for fixing it every time because that's a smart thing to do. The money's not real money. You all know that. The update adjustment factor means that in the SGR formula, you've got to go back to 1997 and capture all the money that should have been saved every year that Congress came in and said, well, we're going to keep you at level payment and we'll come up with the money to do that. But the formula says not only is that money a cost, but the money you should have saved is a cost, and we'll accumulate those dollars, and that's what it will cost you to get rid of this thing. That's the hard part that people don't understand. Bernie Madoff ran his business model this way. He's in jail. We should have been too. The good news is that model is now no longer functional. Our goal with getting this thing through the House of Representatives before the expiration date of March 31st, which was where the last patch expired, our goal was to get somewhere north of 270 representatives, and in our wildest comments, never would I have thought we could get to 300. We got 392 members of the House. And that's not my work, that's your work. Medicine has worked on this thing. You have been tenacious. You can't sit down next to a member of the House of Representatives and say, well, what do you hear from your docs back home? It's always SGR. When I first got there, it was liability and SGR. Now it's pretty much just SGR. Everybody knew this thing had to be tackled. Nobody wanted to do the hard work of understanding it, but when someone proffered a way forward, people took it. I will have to tell you, the night that the Senate voted, and remember they waited 2 weeks to kind of think about it, and then they came back from a recess and they had their vote on a Tuesday night. I went over to the Senate floor, mostly just to watch them, make sure they didn't mess this up. At my high water mark, I thought 70 senators would really be a powerful statement on this. We got 92. This was your work that you did, convincing people we had to have a way forward. I also should point out our senior senator in Texas, John Cornyn, is the number 2 person in the U.S. Senate. He is the whip. He worked this. It looked like LBJ in the old days, the way he went around, grabbed people by the lapels, had his little checkoff list, and made sure he had the votes. Made sure he had the votes to defeat any of the 6 amendments, any one of which would have sent this back to the House and could have created all kinds of difficulty. We were already up against a hard stop. Then the next move was a cascade of very serious events, most of which you're aware of. Senator Cornyn made sure that did not happen. We got the votes and we got this delivered. Now, people ask me, what are you going to do now? And I do want to say that, yeah, this was on my campaign literature when I first ran. I'm going to fix this Medicare payment formula. I also said I was going to fix the freeway that goes through Denton County. There's some orange cones on it. We're working on it. So that's it's a work in progress. And I said I was going to get a flat tax. So maybe I'll go back and work on that. But this was a big accomplishment, and again, it was not something that was done alone. It was not something that was done by one individual. All of you participated, and for that, I am grateful for you giving me the courage and the confidence to keep after this thing, because there were plenty of days where I thought it just can't go forward. What's next is, in our committee, you may have noticed last week, we are doing something called the Cures for the 21st Century, trying to look at why it costs so much in dollars and time to bring things forward and get them through the maze of the funding and the federal bureaucracy, looking at the whole arc through the FDA. There is some hope that we may be able to improve things here because, you know, the kids who are in medical school this morning, they're going to have tools at their disposal to alleviate human suffering that no generation of doctors has ever known. We messed up the policy side pretty bad. Maybe we've made a step back in the right direction. But what we owe them is not just the scientific tools, but we owe them the proper policy platform to move forward, take care of America's patients, and do what their hearts told them to do in the first place, heal people. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Congressman, I hope you don't mind being a poster child, literally, for Texas medicine. This is a picture of Speaker Bonner. I'm sorry, Speaker Boehner signing the bill and then congratulating you for all your hard work. And so we would like you to sign this personally, and this will reside in the archives of the Texas Medical Association. And we're going to send this all over on Texas medicine so that the celebration spreads all over the state.
Thank you, Austin. I'm going to
Wherever you want. Yeah, he's left-handed, he says. So, and I'd also like to invite Dr. Ray Callis up here.
Picture. Boehner gave me the pen, and I wasn't letting go of it at that point. I was afraid he was going to ask for it back.
Dr. Ray Callis is our new chair of council legislation. He serves on the board of TMLT, and he also has a small presentation for the congressman.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. King. On behalf of the Texas healthcare community, we express our immense gratitude to Congressman Burgess for his leadership in passing H.R. 2, the Sustainable Growth Rate Replacement Bill. As a physician, Dr. Burgess readily understood the need for the legislation. He made it his career goal to pass a permanent doc fix and put an end to patchwork politics. Doctors, seniors, 8 million children from low-income families, and those who have limited access to health care will benefit from this important legislation. Getting anything done in the partisan air of Congress is difficult and frustrating to all. But Congressman Burgess, you did it, and you did it with overwhelmingly bipartisan support. Included in H.R. 2 is a standard of care language. Congressman Burgess was committed to getting this language in the bill and keeping it in the bill over the objection of the trial lawyers and the American Bar Association. The standard of care language in H.R. 2 prohibits the misuse of federal quality measurements and payments guidelines to create new opportunities to sue doctors. It also forbids the use of such rules and guidelines to trump over state medical liability. H.R. 2 is the first bill in Congress has ever passed that provides medical liability protections for physicians. The inscription of this beautiful eagle reads, "Presented to Congressman Burgess for including standard of care language in federal law with immense appreciation. Texas Alliance for Patient Access, Texas Medical Liability Trust, and Texas Medical Association." Please join me in richly deserving a round of applause for a champion of seniors, health care, and American taxpayers, and a man that really understands physicians, Congressman Dr. Michael Burgess.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough for the recognition. It is it is very humbling to be in this position. You guys have given me an unbelievable opportunity to not just to serve with you here in the House of Delegates of the Texas Medical Association, but you also gave me your support and your encouragement that has allowed me to serve in the House of Representatives the last 12 years. I can't thank you enough for the honor. Thank you.